I just have to say, totally unrelated, but we mentioned Boston. Fuck Tom Brady. I'm
Okay,
sorry. I'm a
I mean-
Ravens fan.
I get it.
I had to get that.
I
in
get
there.
it.
Yeah, that was it. That's all I had to say for that one.
Podcast. You're listening to the Stripped Podcast by the Lacrosse Flash, talking all things life and lacrosse with Tyson Geick and Colton Clark.
All right, welcome back. As always, cheers.
Cheers. This is our first episode with coffee.
First, Tim's cheers. There's Bailey's in the coffee. Ben, put your cup up, man. Every episode.
He's got one. Okay.
All right, like I was saying, welcome back to the Strip Podcast. On today's podcast, we got a special episode. We got a couple firsts on today's episode. First female guest, first reoccurring guest, first hungover episode, and first morning episode. A lot of firsts today. And, well, producer Ben, I think, is passed out. It's so early.
He went home early last night so he could be here today, though.
What a
Well,
gem.
we
What
got
a
to make
gem.
that clear. So,
Yeah. I'm going to
cheer for Ben.
Is that you again?
Yeah, it's me again. It's my
Okay,
boss.
get to the
It's
intro,
my
Cole.
boss.
Let's go.
On today's episode, we have a reporter for the Boston Herald, Marisa Ingemi.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Nailed it.
A graduate of Boston University. She is currently a reporter for the Boston Bruins of the NHL. She also covers women's hockey and our favorite, lacrosse, and that is mostly why we have her on today, female in sports. And we also have Adam. Welcome back. Adam, you guys may recognize him from last week's episode. He killed it so hard. So welcome back, Adam, too.
Thank you.
Tyson.
Yeah, Marissa, first off, welcome to Vancouver.
Thank you.
Pretty cool to have you here. We got to start with talking about that game last night.
Sure.
Quite the beatdown that the Vancouver Canucks laid on the Bruins. I mean, the Bruins will be fine, but did you see that coming? And what was the vibe like from the other side? Because for the Canucks, we're still celebrating.
The Bruins aren't too worried. It was the third game in 4 nights for them, Western Canada trip. Two really intense games. They were in Calgary the night before. We're down 2-0, 3.5 minutes into the game. Came back and won. Won in overtime to Edmonton a couple nights ago. They've won 12 of their last 13 going into last night. I'd say the vibe was generally completely unconcerned.
So were you in the room after?
Yep.
What was the vibe like in there? Were they just whatever?
Basically, this
happens?
happens.
Yeah.
You're not going to worry. Even like Cassidy said, Bruins coach, I'm not going to lose sleep over this. This happens over 82 games. They've been playing their best stretch of hockey all season lately.
Yeah.
So I don't think if they had lost a couple in a row, I think there would be some concern. I don't know if you remember last year when Vancouver beat the Bruins 8-3 in Boston, and that was during a bad stretch, and then it was kind of chaotic and everyone is freaked out. And this is the opposite of that. Just they've been playing well. Things happen. You lose games sometimes, and it kind of was snowballing from the get-go, it seemed like. And just one of those games. They're back at home. They play Calgary Tuesday night. They're not too worried.
Yeah, no real reason to hit the panic button, I guess. But if we're on that topic, let's talk about your coverage with the Bruins. You're so young and you have a lot of people's dream job. You get to travel across North America covering, I would say, the best team in the NHL. And
What Tyson's getting at is I think you have Tyson's dream job.
I mean, I
doesn't
can't write.
suck.
I'm not a writer, so I couldn't do what Marissa does. There's no chance. But
I can't read, so.
It's awesome.
That's a requirement too.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, reading's a big part of that. I don't know if you've heard previous episodes, but Colton struggles to read aloud on episodes.
That even just your intro for me was, that was
did a great
I
job.
practice all night at the bar, reading my phone.
Yeah.
Well, it sounded excellent.
Thank you. I guarantee it didn't, but
So how does that all come about? You've obviously been working at this for years, and we know each other because of your National Lacrosse League and just lacrosse coverage. But that's led you to such an incredible position, which you've been crushing it at
Thank
such
you.
a young age.
I got really lucky to be in the position I'm in. I applied for a couple of NHL jobs before this one. Starting June of 2018, I guess. I was doing a lot of part-time stuff lacrosse. I was working at a small paper in Massachusetts. I was working for minor league baseball, trying to find something full-time, and I applied for literally everything. And one NHL job got back to me, and I was like, oh, maybe I could do this now. I didn't actually think I could do this now. And then a bunch of other places got back to me, and I was like, oh, cool. And then the Herald job opened up, and I knew the editor there, and I talked to him and applied for it, and it worked out, and now I'm in Vancouver.
So
Yeah.
when it comes to lacrosse, obviously you cover hockey now, but how did you get introduced to the game of lacrosse? Did you play? Did you have a family
Oh
member?
God, I did not play. No, I played softball. That was it.
Okay, so then how did you get introduced to
It was on
lacrosse?
TV. I was in Florida, and there was a game. Calgary and Orlando was on TV, and there was
What?
like a massive brawl. And I was like, "This rules." I wonder if anyone's writing about it, and no one was. So then I did a blog,
No surprise.
and then SB
This is
Na-
cool. I didn't know this.
Then SB Nation took the blog,
Yeah?
and then like I had to do it at that point, and I was like 14, and they yelled at me, and they were like, "You can't legally sign a contract," and I was like, "Well, I already did," and then I had to run their blog, and then I left because they didn't really pay me, and then it did really well.
As happens, yeah.
Yeah, and then like I started doing this, so I couldn't do that anymore.
Okay, so this is interesting because you're not necessarily a supporter of fighting, and we've kind of
Well,
No, I
okay, my
wouldn't say we've
take
gone
on
head to
fighting,
head,
my
but-
take on fighting
yeah.
is it's not needed,
Yeah.
it's not necessary, it probably shouldn't exist, but like it's exciting.
okay.
Like it's there, it's
Fair take.
entertainment, but like I'm not going to watch a fight and be like, "Oh, this isn't fun." But
Right.
it probably shouldn't be happening.
I don't know how we do this. Do I just stick up my hand?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot. I think
Just
there's
yell.
I think there's a lot of athletes, superstars, even enforcers that would argue that point in saying that there is a place for fighting just because, like, you know, you have the superstars like Connor McDavid, we're talking hockey, or like any superstar in lacrosse right now, call it Mitch Jones that we had on, you know, when they get dirtied in the game, what's to stop like a greasy player from continually dirtying them if an enforcer can't come along and fight
No,
somebody,
like
right?
players, and I've talked to Bruins players about this too. Like they're definitely pro fighting, but that doesn't mean like that doesn't come from a culture of you have to be or else you're a wuss or whatever. Like
Right.
there's definitely like some sort of pressure of like you have to have like the ultimate masculinity and the ultimate toughness, or like you're not a hockey guy. So
Yeah.
I just wonder where that comes from sometimes, and also just the idea of like you have to stick up for your teammates. It just concerns me that like players can't have enough respect for one another not to make those plays, and you have to rely on, well, if I beat the crap out of this guy, he won't do that anymore. So like it's not good all around. Like that's why it does exist for sure. That's why there is a place for it. But the fact that it does is just concerning. That's all.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, like I would say that the reason that those kind of players exist is to get like the top players off their game, right? How else are you gonna fuck with players and dirty?
Oh,
Like,
we can swear on this.
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel free
Oh my
to
God.
Well, I do anyways.
let it
Tyson.
rip.
Wow.
But yeah, how else are you gonna fuck with your top players, right? And get them off their game other than dirtying them and cheap shotting them. If you're just always playing a clean game, you know, and allowing those best players to just free flow and play their best game, you know.
But I really do, like, I am in favor of fighting in the game for sure, but I can see your point where it's just like, why not just agree mutually
Yeah,
across
just like
the
play
board?
the hockey game. Like I cover women's hockey, and
Yeah.
they don't need fighting because, well, there's no checking, but also like they just solve it and they just play the hockey, and it's cool because you go to a hockey game and you can just watch them play hockey,
Yeah.
and then that's it, and that's
Right.
really nice.
Do you think, like, from an entertainment standpoint, that maybe there would be more eyes on women's hockey if there was fighting? Like, I would
I don't-
probably be more inclined to
I
watch
don't
women's
know. Like
hockey
to
if
me,
there
it's
was a
like
fight.
I don't watch hockey. Period for fighting. Like most NHL games
True.
don't have a fight. You don't go into an NHL game like, oh, I'm going to watch the Canucks tonight because I hope there's a fight. You're going to watch the game because you want to watch that team.
You used to
So-
back in the day, like when like there would be
In
like
the
a George
90s. But
then,
LaRock versus.
To me, that's not watching hockey. Then you're
Yeah.
watching for chaos, which I
Right.
respect. But at the same time, like if I'm watching the hockey game, I'm watching the hockey game.
No, very, very fair. I get the argument for sure. Like I see both sides.
I am
really.
pro goalie
It's-
fights though.
Yeah, they're so
Like
good.
that has to be allowed.
Adam, how do you feel about
So good.
Goalie fights or
it? No,
fights?
just fighting in general.
I think that
Adam's a fellow American, by the way.
I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah, it's nice to see one of yeah, I think I'm pro fighting in the game, but not if it's manufactured. I think that if it comes naturally, if there's checking, if there's things, it's just natural for you to want to defend yourself and your teammates.
But like that doesn't happen in college hockey either. And
Well,
it doesn't
I
have
mean
to.
more from. I mean, I only cover lacrosse, right? So
Okay.
I would imagine from that, like if someone's hitting you with a metal pole, then you'd be like, well, what the fuck? Why are you doing that? And then you'd want to hit back or do something like that. That just seems like a natural impulse.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but also if again, hockey and lacrosse, you're make believe. Like we invented the rules for that.
Yep.
We're just allowing there to be fighting because of things. If that wasn't allowed from the beginning, no one would even think of it.
Entertainment.
It's not a necessary part of winning or losing the game a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it is. I just think that it's just a natural reaction. I think that it gets taken away from, like, no one's thinking about the game in that moment. They're just thinking about, like, themselves.
But that's like not a good thing either, though.
Right.
If you're not thinking of the game or thinking to win a game, like, what are you doing then?
Well, we're going into an existential conversation about human reaction.
I mean, fair.
We
Here's
could
the
try.
thing.
I don't know. My
Here's
brain's
the
not
thing.
working. Firing on all cylinders.
Also, like, field lacrosse doesn't have fighting either. And it's
Field
still,
lacrosse is boring, though.
Field lacrosse is great. It's
I think
very
it's boring,
intricate.
too.
You
I
have to have
played
an
field lacrosse.
appreciation of it. But I get that. But, like, if you know, like, all the details, I think it's really exciting.
So
I know, I'd say 80% of the details. I played college lacrosse, D1, shout out to myself. But it's so boring. There's so many things that they need to change about that league.
Oh, there could be some
sport.
changes.
And
for sure. It's like baseball,
they're
though,
making
right?
those
Like, you
changes,
like it
too.
or you don't,
Yeah.
kind of.
So then have PLL players been told to be a little more aggressive and fight? Because they were pretty feisty.
I think so. Like they had the cameras, like Dixon said, following the guys to the bathroom. Like they wanted to be in the mix of everything, and there was a whole bunch of scrums, and they'd immediately have those clips on social media as a kind of marketing
I don't know
tool.
how much of the PLL presentation is manufactured, though, either. Like, they're very leaning
it.
into, yeah, exactly. Like, they show you what they want to show you.
Right.
Like, we're like, oh my God, all this inside access. And it's great for the
Yeah.
sport as a whole. I think what they're doing is great.
Yeah.
But they're still only showing what they want to show us at the same time. So
Right.
some of it has to be taken with a grain of salt, I think.
No, I agree with that. So my point with fighting is kind of like, I like it because I grew up with it, and it's slowly going to be just pushed out. And I think that, when I have kids and they start playing, they're going to be less reliant on it or used to seeing it. And then they won't be sitting here having the same argument like, hey, we need this.
It'll seem
So
like,
just-
wait, that was allowed before?
Exactly. Over time, I think that slowly it'll make its way out.
Yeah, that's why I'm not overly like concerned with it. Like, oh my
Right.
God, we have to ban it right now.
Yes.
Like,
Okay,
it's
that's good.
It's being phased out.
Yeah.
Until like younger generations are going to come up. It's not going to matter. It's not going to be a thing, and that's fine.
Right.
Until then, players, it's like visors, right? Like
Yeah.
I think it was 2013.
They grandfathered
yeah,
that.
yeah.
in
So
kind
like
of-
everyone should be wearing a visor, but like it is what it is. If you
Right.
came in the league before then and that's your choice at that point.
yeah,
It was
absolutely.
like the last generation. It was like Cody Eakin and like Jamie Benn kind of era, were the last two to, or I think it might have been Cody Eakin.
No, I was talking with someone about this the
Visor.
other day. Who's going to be the last one to wear a visor? And Jamie Ben's like,
Is
not
one-
wear a visor. Sorry,
wear-
and
yeah.
Ben's going to be like one of them probably.
Really?
Yeah. There was someone else I want to
So
say on
weird.
Anaheim too, but I forget who it was.
He's an island boy. I wouldn't do it. There's no chance.
Not wear a visor?
No.
It's scary to be out there.
Not
Like
a
I
chan-
played
not a
men's league
chance.
without a visor, and you're like, holy smokes!
You get a puck in the face. It's not worth it.
in
Especially
the
with a
face, high
contract like
stick.
$8-9 million. You're gonna take a puck to the face and possibly lose an eye. Look at
Brian Berard.
Alex Geick in lacrosse.
Right.
He lost an eye just getting like a bounce pass to the eye. I can't imagine
Yeah.
a puck full speed to the eye.
In college, they wear the full masks, and I don't understand why they wouldn't just do that everywhere. Like,
because they look silly. But I
but
mean,
it's safety, like that.
Yeah.
I mean, my perspective always is player safety comes first. Just
Yeah.
because I don't want to say guys don't know better, but they will do anything to play
Right.
to be at that level. And sometimes I'm not sure think through everything concerning well-being or health. And why would they?
Yeah.
They're like 24-year-old guys. Like they don't do
With
that.
that, like like visors don't make the game more entertaining. Like NCAA hockey's still incredible,
Mm-hmm.
and like just because you're wearing like a cage versus a visor doesn't make the game.
And look, when a guy gets hurt, like then they
Yeah.
have to wear it. Like Chara, when he broke
Right.
his jaw, then he had to wear it. So like they can get through it.
W-
Like when
if-
they have to use that to play, they'll wear it.
Yeah, I think if they're all wearing them, then it's okay. Like if you got some guys wearing cages, some visors, and you get that like
Here's the thing, that
contact.
would eliminate fighting.
Yeah,
As soon as they went to
yeah.
the cages, it's out. And I think that's why it hasn't been a conversation. Is it's,
okay, we're
that would
onto
make it
something.
very cut and dry all of
Yeah.
a sudden.
If we're talking about the physicality of the game and looking at the NLL, should we be talking then about the issue with potential concussions and brain damage as well?
Yeah,
if we're
that's
talking
a
about
part of it.
face issues,
That's a part of it. That's why like getting punched in the face like hurts you. Like especially if you do it a lot and you get hit in the head really bad. the concussion problems that have happened with former and current NHL players and NLL players. Like, that's definitely part of the concern. Not only is it like unnecessary, holds up the game, puts 2 players in the box for 5 minutes, delays everything, but guys also get hurt. Like, the upside's not great.
Yeah, I feel like football gets all the flack for all the contact, but so many other sports have so much physical contact, and it just like no one even thinks about talking
football
about
just like acts like the issue doesn't exist. The NHL at least is like concussions are bad. The NFL's like, what's a concussion? So that's kind of the difference there.
Well, I mean, in fairness to professional sports, you have the UFC, you have professional boxing, and there's primarily it's all getting hit in the head.
Right.
Pretty
but
much,
you're signing
right?
up for that. You are just a fighter. You're not
Some
playing
could
hockey.
say the argument that you're signing up for that in hockey too,
Not
right?
necessarily, because fighting's not a requirement in hockey. You can go your whole NHL career and never get in a fight and still be a really good player. Fighting is the only part of fighting.
Some people got into hockey or made a career of it because they were a fighter, right?
Sure, but that's not happening anymore. And it probably won't happen ever again.
Who would you say is the last of that era?
The last of the
John
enforcers.
Scott?
John Scott.
John Scott.
What's his name? Who you played for Boston?
Sean Thornton?
No.
He could actually play a little bit too.
It's
Oh,
Lucic.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Lucic.
Well, he
But
was,
he could score too.
well,
He's
he,
a
when
great
he was in
power
Boston,
forward.
he had high upside as a scorer and then just like fell off the map.
Yeah.
He's a guy who I thought was focused too much on a physical element instead of honing his game. And I think that kind of can happen with those guys sometimes.
And ended up.
And then he just fell off a cliff.
What a
still
smart
fights,
decision by
though.
the Bruins though to let him go when they did. Like that was the perfect time to cut bait and like see ya. Like
Well, it
send
was
him to the
clear
Kings.
I mean, it's weird. Every trade deadline, everyone in Boston is like, oh, they should trade for Lucic again. And I can't even fathom why anyone is thinking about that. But there are people like legitimately tweeting, are the Bruins going to like make a move for Lucic? And I cannot figure it for the life of me. But also, the whole narrative in Boston all the time is they're not tough enough no matter what. So
Yeah. Okay. That's
Are you from Boston?
I'm from New Hampshire, which is basically, it's like North
New
Boston,
England,
but
right?
in the woods.
That's
Yeah.
New England.
Yes.
Okay.
England. So you're from Boston. What was it like for you when you first heard that you were going to get this job? At such a young age, you don't have to say your age.
I'm 23. I don't care.
23. Holy shit. 23.
I like to stress people out with that. So
Well, I mean, that's a.
We're like we're not doing enough with our lives.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave. But yeah, what was that like when you heard that you got the? How long you been working for the team now?
I've been covering the Bruins. Like I've been covering them for a while, but full time for the Herald. This is my second year.
Oh, okay. So,
But I've had Bruins credentials since I was like 15. I freelanced for a long time, for like almost 10 years freelancing and just like writing for whoever would let me do it for them. So I'd covered maybe like 100 Bruins games before I got this job. So I'd been there and kind of
Crazy.
done it before.
I was like, I mean, that's such a young age to know what you want to do. Like, I still don't know what I want to do, and I'm 30. That's why I'm on this podcast with Tyson.
Let's talk about the challenges that kind of come with the position that you hold, because the fan base is very, let's say, just conservative. They don't necessarily like change, and I've seen online, some of the nasty comments. Like, how is it dealing with that, and how do you kind of overcome that and just like focus on what you're doing and doing it to the best of your ability?
I'm better at it now because they happen enough where like it doesn't mean anything. Like, when you say a word enough times, it loses meaning, kind of. Like enough people say, like, you're just like, okay, whatever. I'm in Vancouver and I'm paid to be here and I'm at the hockey game and I've been at 3 hockey games in 4 nights and that rules. And I just get to go to Seattle and hang out because of it. So it doesn't really matter. I had someone yesterday like tweeting at me like, oh, like you can't have any problems because they sent you to Vancouver. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't work like that at all.
Everything else is perfect
Like,
because I'm in Vancouver.
Yeah, everything else has just gone swimmingly because I'm in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Sure, that's exactly how it works. Yeah, but it is what it is. I have a cool job. I'm happy with it. People have their comments. It's fine. As long as it doesn't go over the line, which when that does, then all sorts of fun things happen, like police and things like that.
Right. I feel like a lot of people are just jealous when they do come at you with anything like that.
That and like a lot of people just don't understand what it is that reporters do either.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, like you should be so happy you get to like watch your favorite team. And I'm like, first of all, there's no like fan base anymore once you're a reporter. You're just doing the job. People are like, oh, it's so cool. You're a Bruins fan. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what's happening about the game right now. And just people don't have a full understanding, or they'll be like, oh, why don't you just go in and like tell Brad Marchand he sucked tonight? It's like, because that's like, that's not what you
how
do.
it works.
That's not what you do with your access. You're like, hey, what went wrong tonight? And he can tell you why he sucked tonight. That's what my job is. Like, it's kind of a vessel towards here's what happened and here's the information I can give you that you can't get on your own. That's how I've always viewed it, but people don't understand how it works, and I think a lot of vitriol comes from just misunderstanding as well.
When you talk about access, obviously the NHL is, this huge organization, and the NLL is trying to get there. But you're an insider, or you were an insider in the NLL. So how would you compare the access and kind of ability to communicate with players in the NLL compared to what it's like now with the NHL?
It's definitely different because teams have like a whole PR staff. Like the Bruins have like 4 PR guys, and you have to remember who's in charge of what to talk to whoever you want to. And there's like protocol and organization. I remember covering NLL games, and there was like one PR person, and I'd be like, I'm talking to these 4 players. And they'd either be like, yeah, go and talk to whoever you want, I don't care. Or they'd be like really weird and be like, no access at all tonight. And it'd be like, okay, I guess. That was always weird about the NLL. They were so hit or miss about access for a while. I think the new regime, since Nick Sakewicz came in as commissioner, has the access and just media friendliness has changed a lot. Because when I was doing stuff like 7 or 8 years ago, it was not very good at all. But it's different because like I can look up anything in the NHL I want. I can find out like the all-time shootout percentage of anyone, but for the NLL, trying to find stats is like
you
got to hit up Graham
tell
Barrow.
me.
You got to hit up Graham Barrow or you're screwed.
Exactly. So it's very different in that sense that it's almost easier with the NHL because like once you're in and you're covering the NHL, you're going to get what you need, but you just have to know the proper channels. Where in the NLL, it was hit or miss. You're either Facebook messaging a guy, hey, do you have 5 minutes? Or you have a team being like, no, none of our people are ever going to talk to you again because you sent a tweet one time. So the NLL was weird.
That's a very good point. I think like it's easy to get blacklisted in the NLL, right?
Oh, yeah.
People hold grudges.
As a former blacklisted NLL person for like 2 years, and I don't know why. So
I'm working on it.
You're working on getting blacklisted?
Slow chirps a player.
Eventually, they're going to be like, no Colton here.
I'm not talking to that guy anymore.
Well, the communication was like brutal in the NLL for a while.
Yeah.
And so this was my second season that this happened when I was working with the league. But I would get the player transaction emails from Brian Lemon.
Yep.
And I started in probably September tweeting out the information because like the NLL doesn't, at that time for sure, like have reporters covering like the ups and downs, who's in and out of the lineup.
There's a reason for that. They make it very difficult.
Yeah, exactly. It's tough. So in September, I started tweeting it out, and the tweets got good feedback, and there was a lot of people kind of interacting with them, and I'm like, oh, this is great. People want to know. So it was right at the start of the season in December, and Westberg re-signs with the Calgary Roughnecks, and I get an email. So I see it, and just like I've been doing since September, I send out a tweet and I go, Westberg, like breaking news, Westberg's re-signed with the Calgary Roughnecks. Well, that ruffled feathers with Calgary, who is an organization that doesn't like things done a certain way. And it went to Ashley Dabb at the time, who came at me pretty hard with, we can't do that. Your tweet caused problems. I'm like, listen,
Sounds familiar.
I've been doing this since September and no one said anything. So now it's a problem. Like, you guys need to have a way that you set it up and do it, and then communicate
What do
that
they
with the
expect
public.
sending information to the press? Like, what are you going to do with that if you're not going to report on it?
It's just cool. I'm going to like sit on my hands and not tweet anything.
Well,
and just
unless
keep
like
it in
it
my
said
mind.
confidential or embargoed or anything like that.
Yeah. Well,
But the NL doesn't do that. They don't like embargo things.
But I just don't understand what's the purpose for a team. Like, why do they have to be the ones to break the news about Westberg re-signing with the Calgary Roughnecks?
The thing about the NLL, and I don't want to like piss anyone off.
No, this is what this platform's here for. Yeah. Do it.
There are so many people who cover the NLL, who are involved with the NLL, who are very friendly with the NLL, and kind of will do what they want them to do. And when I was covering the league,
Steer the narrative.
Yeah, when I was covering the league, I started when I was 14, and they were extremely like, hey, don't post pictures of empty seats, and like, don't talk about other leagues in your stories, and don't report on anything ever. And I was like, that's not how it works.
It's
though.
not reporting.
I was
It's
like
not
14
journalism.
and I'm like, I'm not sure that's how I'm supposed to do it.
Exactly.
So no. And then they like blacklisted a 16-year-old girl because I was like tweeting like, hey, Jeff Snyder has a concussion. And they were like, you can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, but that's what happened. And I'm reporting. And you wonder like why people don't report. Like a lot of lacrosse reporters, like really good ones, report on like big picture stuff like expansion or like here's what's going to happen with this team or like things like that. But it's so tough to find like day-to-day things like this guy's hurt or this team wants to make this trade or things like that. Or when you do see reports like trades or transactions, it's the same couple of people and that's for a reason. So when I came in and I was able to like kind of start breaking stuff right away, a lot of people did not like that because it kind of messed with their status quo of who they're telling things to and how they want information relayed. So long story short, I didn't get to cover the NLL for 2 years. And I was trying to run a blog. It was like 40 writers who also weren't allowed to cover the NLL. So that was just like a great chapter in my life. That was great.
No, it's that's a very good point. It's a struggle. And like when I got hired on, my job title was like reporter, but what am I doing? Just reporting on human interest pieces for the league all the time.
That's
like,
not reporting. That's feature writing. And that's like great and all, but that's not what reporting is either.
That was you bring up the empty seats. That was such a struggle when we first started. We'd cut videos and like there'd be like highlights or whatever in our stories, and we'd have to like crop it out and like zoom in as much as possible so you couldn't see the empty seats. I'm like, guys, we just need to own it. Like it is what it is. I know the optics aren't great, but like I think they got away from that. After, but it just seemed to be such a focal point when we first started. It was a struggle, and we've got 2 people producing. I'm like, this is what you were going to hold us up on in the production process. Like, we just want to be pumping out content. But
before we get too far away from what she just said, how do you feel about that, Adam? Like all of what she just said.
As a reporter in the league,
yeah. I mean, I feel like I've come up against the same things. You know, when you build relationships with coaches and players, you know, they say things to you, and I think that maybe if they don't understand what off the record means, maybe there's some that don't. But I think that mostly, you know, it's such a tight-knit community in lacrosse, right? And once
everyone knows who everyone is, or like they personally know everyone.
You got to cross someone in the hallway.
It's easy to figure out too when someone reports something where it came from sometimes, because there's only so many people.
Right, but I also think that once they've accepted you in, like they, I'm guessing players and coaches accepted you in, they were feeding you this information. That's happened with me too. Is that, you know, if they want to tell you things, I've had situations where players have told me things and then they've been like, well, wait, hold on, maybe I shouldn't have this put out there because I don't think other people would be happy that this is out here. Well, then maybe they shouldn't be they should know ahead of time that they shouldn't be telling me these things.
And that comes from media training from the league, right? Because like in the NHL, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I was covering the NLL like daily, I was talking to players, coaches, GMs, never had an issue with any of them. If they wanted to tell me something, and that's the thing too, when you're a reporter and people tell you something, it's for a reason. Yeah. They know what you are, they know what you do, they know what you want to do, what you're interested in, especially if you do break stories. So they're telling you stuff for a reason. It's now your responsibility to vet, why are they telling me this? Can I get a second source? Can I be responsible about this? And then if the league has a problem with that, it's like, well, too bad. I did my due diligence here. And if you don't like that, like, sure, you can go blacklist children trying to cover your sport. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've thought about that sometimes when I tweet out things, and I try and tweet out the most positive things about players sometimes. But I remember when I got started, I was like, oh, I'm just going to tweet out like interesting information. And then coaches would be like, well, why did you tweet that out? And I was like, well, if you aren't doing something good, but it's miraculous what you're doing bad, then someone should know that it's miraculous that you're doing something that's historically bad. Like, that's important.
It's also your job to report on the league, and that means report on everything that happens in the league, not just what's cherry picked or what's easy or obvious. And I will say too, I feel like the NLL's gotten a lot better with a lot of stuff since I was covering it full time, like 7 or 8 years ago, where it was just like a complete nightmare and free for all. Like my experiences since then, since this new regime came in, like I said, like when Sakewicz came in, and they've gone through like a bunch of PR changes since then, but like my experience the past couple of years has been much more positive, and maybe that's just because I have a bigger platform now, but or like I'm not as involved anymore as I used to be, but it's a lot better than it used to be.
Well, Joel Feld, who deals with the broadcasting,
he's great. I like him a lot.
He's spoken very highly of you in the past too.
Joel's great.
Yeah. So it's just a thing too. I mean, you've been around the league for a while now, and I think that, like Adam said, you kind of get like accepted, and you're just a part of the family, and like people know the name, and they kind of allow you to do your job. But it's what an interesting thing. You know, we talk about the game picks and stuff, and just like the coverage that we're doing, and with the Lacrosse Flash, it's kind of fun because I started it last year, and now we've got essentially a group of friends just working together at something. But
It's really cool.
Like the teams get mad at certain things, and I'm like, you guys realize that we're a blog in our second year of operation, right? And like we're probably the number one outlet right now for NLL coverage. So it's just, lacrosse is an interesting thing to cover for sure.
I mean, when I was running my website on SB Nation, it was me and a friend who was like 15 and I was 14, and we're like running this lacrosse outlet, which other than Inside Lacrosse was the only outlet covering pro lacrosse at the time. We ended up having like 40 writers writing there and just like producing stuff, and they'd be like yelling at us, "Why are you doing this?" And I'd be like, "Because we're just like trying to do a lacrosse blog, and we're just like figuring out how to do journalism and how to write about." I look back at stuff I wrote, like game stories, and I'm like, 200 words is not a game story. What are you doing? But like we were just like trying our best, and life was made so much more difficult for no reason. And it's weird.
They should just be welcoming you with open arms.
And I think a lot of it too was like there are people who have covered lacrosse since like literally the 90s and stuff, and they're the only people who have covered the NLL. And there are people who have followed it without a lot of the coverage that has kind of evolved. And then all of a sudden, like a 14, 15-year-old girl comes in and is breaking stories. I don't think that rubbed anyone the right way.
No, that's true.
So what is it that drew you to lacrosse then? In all honesty.
Well, she said
I knew I wanted to be in sports journalism, and I was a child. So I was running a blog that no one read, just like for my own entertainment. And then I was like, oh, no one's writing about lacrosse, so I bet I could. So I did, and it worked.
Okay, so you just picked it because nobody was doing it.
And it was
basically.
cool. I was like, this is cool. I bet I could learn everything about this and write about it. And then I did. So that was cool.
That's unreal.
It worked.
I love lacrosse. I don't read it. I mean, as we know, or very well, anyways.
Read right.
Read right.
Writing's not.
Speaking this morning has proven tough for me as well too.
I don't think it's been one of your bad episodes.
Not yet.
No.
The Bailey should be helping
I
right
got
now.
time.
Yeah.
No, my brain is just not firing on any cylinders right now.
It's the poutine, the late night poutine.
Yeah. So you're a reporter who likes to champion what women are doing in sports, and I think that's really great for keeping an even playing field, so to speak, and giving that people credit where credit is due. We talked about the regime in the NLL. Obviously, Jessica Berman coming in as a deputy commissioner. What are your thoughts on kind of her coming in and kind of, her experience with the NHL as well and bringing that to the NLL?
I think it's great for two reasons. I mean, we were talking off air about Nick Sakewicz and coming in from a non-lacrosse perspective and being able to have ideas without the baggage of all that lacrosse history. And with her, it's kind of similar. You come in from the NHL, you know what a pro operation looks like. Maybe you can't get to that point with the NLL right now just because there aren't enough people or not enough revenue and things like that, but you have a clue of what that's supposed to look like. So that's good. And two, just having more representative voices of your fan base. There are a lot of women who watch the NLL, and having another woman there who can kind of understand that audience a little bit more always helps. And that's with all sports. Just having people who represent your full audience is always good, because people who aren't that audience aren't always going to be thinking of other people, like even like really good people in the NLL or any league, I'm sure, who are just like guys and that's all they know. They're not going to be worrying about like women fans or anything like that. So having more women, more people of color, just a wider representative of what your audience is always good.
Is there something else the league can do aside from hiring women in the industry that can help grow the female support in the game?
Just in general, targeting women, not just building your entire audience around guys. Even things like the Colorado Mammoth have like their hot tub.
Not anymore.
Oh, they don't have that anymore?
No,
great.
Big discussion on the podcast.
Okay, because like that always made me feel super uncomfortable and kind of like, well, this isn't for me. They're not interested in me as a fan. I'm not their audience at all. So things like that, and just having more just being about the lacrosse. I think the NBA does a good job at that, and that's why they have a really big women audience. It's just kind of about what's happening and the personalities, and not about like all this extra stuff that's targeted strictly for men.
See, I played in Colorado for the Mammoth, and obviously the hot tub girls were there when we were there, and they were hired actresses or models.
Role models.
I think we solved this on one episode and just said, we'll stick some guys in there too, and it's problem solved.
Yeah, but you don't need ad for anyone. Like, you're watching the lacrosse game.
But we said more,
I never
more so.
understood this either in general, like when sports will have like attractive women just kind of there. And that would go for men as well.
Like
just
cheerleaders or...
Well, I don't want to discredit like actual cheerleaders and like what they do and like their labor deserves to be paid for because they're doing a job. But the whole aspect of like, oh, we need to have just like some good looking person to bring people in. Well, then you must not really trust your product all too much.
Fair. I don't think we're talking about bringing in people that are like models to be in the hot tub. I'm just saying like have any fan in there. I think it's something different. It kind of stands out.
Yeah, it's almost like who has a pool in baseball? The Diamondbacks? Like that's
what I was trying to
fine.
figure. Is it
But then when
Diamondbacks?
you're sexing it up all of a sudden, like that's for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's very exclusionary, whatever that word is. That's not inclusive. That's the word I'm looking for.
For sure.
I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, but at the halftime of the Georgia Swarm game, they had this thing where they were dropping parachutes from the Jumbotron area.
Yeah.
And about a couple hundred women were fighting over these parachutes because one of them had a token that you could get a $30,000 ring. And I thought that was really interesting. It was really wild to see kind of everyone kind of excited about that event. And I think that definitely also brought some people out, maybe the promotion of it.
I feel like it should have been like a guys fighting for that, no? Because wouldn't it be guys who are paying for it for the female?
Well,
This whole event confuses me.
Yeah.
Why can't we just like do a lacrosse game? Like it just seems really simple. Go to the game, you watch lacrosse, and you go home, and like that's kind of it.
Well,
I mean, the first game I ever covered when I was 14. Do you remember the whole lap dance scandal? Was the Blazers?
No.
That was the first game I ever covered. Have you never heard of this?
No.
Oh God! So the Blazers, RIP. I only covered them for 1 year because they folded, and they had like
Bring him back.
they had the best team. They had Dawson, Josh Sanderson, Casey Powell. Like
Yeah,
their defense
Rosie was
like,
in net for
yeah,
them.
and Anthony Cosmo. Their defense was like rookie Ryan Dilks and Damon Edwards just like coming into their own. Kyle Rubish in his second year, like Belial. You look at that team and you're like, why did they like
Johnny Harnett, shout out.
They missed the playoffs that year, which is insane to me in retrospect.
They didn't even do that bad in terms of like fan support, right? Like
They were okay. They got a little under 10. And back then,
so Toronto Rock crowds.
everyone was getting about 10.
Yeah.
And then it kind of dipped for a while. And now they're going with the smaller arenas. And it seems like it's kind of on the up. I haven't paid super close attention to NLL attendances this year, but it seems like it's going up again.
It looks like it,
Saskatchewan and Halifax doing really well, obviously.
Right.
I don't know how Philly has done so far, but I'm assuming pretty well.
I've got the numbers right here.
Oh, that's why we brought you on, Adam.
Philadelphia is averaging 8,000 fans.
You'd like to see a little more, but it's a new team, I guess.
Yeah. And, they're picking up their wins. Obviously, fans might have been discouraged last season because they were still learning.
And remember, too, there's a lot of trust that's breached when you relocate, too. It's going to take some people some time to come back.
Yeah, but typical high attendances, Calgary, Buffalo, Saskatchewan, Colorado, all above 10,000. Calgary, 12,700 is the highest in
Then
the
what's
league.
Toronto there? Like, you'd like to see a much higher number.
Toronto is fifth in the league at 8,400.
You'd like a much higher number there. And then you have, what is that, 3 teams into 4 range?
Toronto's a crazy one.
Yeah,
because I remember.
You don't want teams into 4 range. I mean, the Black Wolves have a small arena.
I love
like
that
more.
arena.
I only got to go there
lacrosse.
once.
That's it.
It's tough to get there. There's no public transit. I don't have a car. So, like, I don't get... I would cover the NLL a lot more if I could get to Black Wolves games. Like, I did a season preview. I'd like... If they make the playoffs, I'll make an effort to go. But it's very tough to get there. But the lap dance story, before we get away on
yes.
First game I ever covered, and I didn't see it because I didn't know what a lap dance was. I was 14. And I was writing about the first game I've ever been credentialed for. And apparently they had this event where the Blazers dancer girls were getting lap dances from the mascot.
Oh.
And then it was on like TV, like in the news, like this just happened. And my parents were like, weren't you there? And I was like, yeah, what's that? And they're like, oh no, what are you getting into here? And then it was like on ESPN and stuff. And people were like talking about it. That's the most publicity I'd ever seen the NLL get. So that was really cool. That was a great introduction to the league.
Yeah.
Good job, Boston.
They got rid of that. They got rid of the mascot.
What was the mascot?
It was like really creepy anyways. Like if you want to look it up, it's like he had like a head on fire
Okay, I'm getting an idea.
He was creepy. I didn't like him. I don't like the Canucks mascot, by the way, because it's a whale with legs. I don't like that.
He's
Well, how's he supposed to walk around?
Why doesn't he have a tail?
There are 45-year-old men that are so excited to see Finn, and I'm like, it's awesome. And he
There was a teddy bear in a garbage bag last night. I was aggressive.
It got a great cheer.
They're so aggressive.
That's the Game Press team. Shout out to
that's
Steven.
the mascot.
Yeah, this is horrifying.
Yeah, it's not great.
What is that?
I would not want to.
It looks like a lacrosse ball on fire.
Yeah,
that
it
might
does.
be what it is.
You remember
but-
those like little antenna things, those like antenna balls that you used to get like to put on your car?
Oh yeah,
that's what that
on the
looks
front.
like.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so they never like used the mascot again because it was definitely like the costume's fault that they decided to have that.
It's insensitive to redheads.
Let's put it away and never be seen again.
The Blazers,
So-
man, R.I.P.
Well, yeah, rest in peace, Blazers. Bring them back.
Almost 10 years ago they folded down.
That's
Yeah,
nuts.
I was distraught because it was the first team I covered. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's the only way I can cover the NLL, and now I couldn't. I was like, well, I just started. That's not fair.
Well, didn't they put a request in, or wasn't there like a patent file? or
TD
something
Garden
like that?
apparently owns like
The
a
Shamrocks?
trademark name for a lacrosse
Yeah.
team, but like nothing has come from that. And I'm also so out of the loop now. I haven't checked in on that in like a year.
I think you were covering that. A couple
Yeah.
years
So
ago too.
oh God. So like I didn't cover the NLL for a few years because I went to college and like had a life and couldn't like just sit at home and run 40 people trying to write about lacrosse
Yeah.
anymore. So I was out of it. And then I was like blogging and writing for like basically everyone because they were all paying me. So I was like, cool.
Yeah.
And for College Cross, who are great people and I love them all, they just let me post what I wanted a lot of the time. So when I was working at the Globe doing high school stuff, I was getting a lot of tips about NLL expansion. And I did a post, and this is almost 3 years ago now, that there was going to be a team in San Diego, the whole Halifax thing, to Rochester being owned by Buffalo and Boston. And I think Dallas, they were talking to as well, was in that story.
Yeah.
And I remember this is another NLL coverage example thing. I reported that in July, and everyone was kind of like, no, none of that's true. All the NLL people were like, no. And then like off the record, they were all like, yeah, that's true. And I was like, okay, then why are you all yelling at me publicly? And then like Steve Govett went on Teddy Jenner's podcast and started calling me like a blogger and not a reliable source because I said he was going to be a San Diego president. And now he is. And I never got an apology or anything. I was just like, okay, well, I was right. And I'm sorry for being right, but it's true. Like I broke the David Backes trade the other day and no one yelled at me for it. It was weird. I was like bracing myself like someone's going to tell me I'm wrong or this wasn't true. And then everyone's just like, oh, cool. Yeah, that happened. I was like, wow. Like David Backes has been calling me, telling me I'm wrong, like from Anaheim or anything. So
This damn blogger.
yeah.
Speaking of barriers, what barriers do you think have you come across in being a young professional writer, female, if any, like in lacrosse or hockey? Have you come across any?
The only thing is like sometimes like the arenas won't believe I'm a reporter. So I'll go in and I'll be like, hi, here's my credential. Can I go to the morning skate? And they're like, no. And I'm like, why? And they're like, you don't seem like a reporter.
You don't
and
seem
then I'll
like-
like have a colleague walk by and they let him in. And I'm like, he has the same credential I do. What's going on here?
Like you don't seem like an arena attendant.
Yeah, or like it happened at MSG one time, and I called one of my friends who like covers all the New York NHL teams, and she came and got me and like yelled at the guy like just sexism, and he's like, oh no, and panicked and let us go at that point.
Drop that bomb on him. He's like, oh shit.
One time in Ottawa, I was trying to get my credential, and they're like, we can't find you, and I'm like, well, I just told you my name in Boston Herald, and they're like, oh, we were looking under player girlfriend, sorry. I was like, but I told you where I work. Wait, where did you come up with that? So that's like off the top of my head, and then just people tweet me and things.
Yeah.
But as far as like doing my job, I haven't had much trouble. I'm able to go in and talk to the same people and write the same stuff. That's about it. I feel like if there's anything, it's stuff I don't know about, like anything people say behind my back or like access that's being restricted I don't know about. But from my general awareness, there hasn't been really anything.
So we were talking about this right before we started filming, but it was last season that the Bruins had some sort of promotion, I guess kind of like game giveaway with Barstool Sports, and they were
They
Barstool.
sure did.
Yeah, they had Barstool on the towels in round 1 against the Leafs, right? And you were someone who came out saying like this shouldn't be.
I never even said that.
No?
I just asked them because a lot of people were asking me, do you know about this? And I didn't.
Yeah.
So I went to PR and I asked.
Yeah.
They asked me to send an email so they can send me an official comment.
Right.
I tweeted, I'm awaiting a comment. Everyone yelled at me. Then I got a comment and tweeted what the comment was, and everyone yelled at me. And I never once said I was anti-Barstool. I am, but I never said that.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, here's, you all DM me all day long while I was trying to do my job. So here. I
They're
asked
just
for
kind
a
of like
comment.
jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, people were just like, well, why'd you ask? And I'm like, because my audience asked me to, and I can, and I'm here, so why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
So I just got yelled at for kind of nothing. And then everyone at Barstool like tried to dox me and tell me they knew where I lived and all this stuff.
What?
Yeah.
Like from the organization itself?
No,
like the
like-
professionals working there?
No,
Or like the
people who
Stooley
follow.
fans?
Yeah. And the only thing that happened was like Kirk Minahan called me and tried to get me on his podcast, and I don't know how he found my cell phone number. Like to this day, it's listed publicly in the NHL now, but it wasn't last year because I got hired too late.
Yeah.
So I have no idea how that happened. So that was weird and cool.
Weird.
But yeah, so that was like a whole thing that happened, and I got 2,000 Twitter followers out of it. So at the end of the day, I'll take that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't fun. I had to lock my Twitter for part of the summer. I had to lock my Instagram because people kept like.
It trickled into the summer too.
Yeah. Even still, like I get emails every once in a while.
I can't imagine being that heated about something where I'm tweeting like.
What was the hate here? Sorry, like I missed what.
Oh, so the Bruins at Game 2 of the Cup Final had a promotion where they were giving away towels with the Barstool logo.
Yeah.
And I asked them why, and they said we have no comment, and then everyone yelled at me.
Oh, okay. So what's your? You said you're not a fan of Barstool. Why aren't you a fan of Barstool?
They're misogynistic.
Fair. Okay.
That's about it.
Quick. I'm not a huge fan of Barstool either, to be perfectly honest with you. Producer Ben is. If you just look on his laptop.
Yeah, just throw him under the
it
bus.
is what it's like.
Staring at us.
It's a fight. Like I've
Viva
given
la
up.
stool.
Like I understand. Like I'm of the belief that people who support it are somewhat complicit, but also at the same time, like it's not everyone's responsibility to yell at everyone else about like their behavior.
Right.
But at the same time, their existence is not great, and it's caused a lot of trouble for me and like a lot of other people I know.
Yeah.
And I never even said that, and I got yelled at. So now I say that all the time, and no one yells at me anymore. So
I think
they expect it.
I think what Barstool Sports has done for sports in a certain realm is positive. How it's kind of like more laid back now. You have like just the common fan having a bit of a voice. When it comes to the misogynistic side, that's not something that I support.
To do that because like. They do. I don't read or subscribe to any Barstool stuff just because I don't want to be complicit.
Yeah.
But they do some stuff, from my understanding, that is just like zany, cool sports fun
Yeah.
stuff. And like that would be really cool if there wasn't a damper put on it by just them literally hating women a lot of the time.
Right. I like what they've done. This is what I do support. It's just they've kind of stripped things down a little bit, right? Where you listen to Spit and Chicklets. I don't need the stories about quote, banging chicks and stuff like that. I don't need that. That's not why I listen to a podcast, but I like how it's laid back. It's guys, and you can have girls on it too, but just having a conversation. And that's different than a lot of the sports coverage. And there's a way to do that without
the other stuff though too.
Right.
And they choose to go in the direction where they do that. And to me, that's a choice that they make. And that's up to them, and that's going to be the audience they attract. And
I think they're picking low-hanging fruit. I mean, it works for their followers. But
those followers then go out and do harmful things,
right?
Because they're encouraged. Because they're like, oh well, if these people who are famous and have a platform can say these things, I can go and say this too.
Yeah.
And then it becomes harmful.
So watching an interview with Portnoy after, he was talking about that incident specifically. I felt like, was that directed at you? Like when you were watching it back, did you feel like
I don't watch anything with Portnoy in it? I don't have any need for that.
Yeah.
Like it's not a credible person to me. Like I don't really care what's going on the day-to-day Barstool stuff. I don't follow it. I don't really pay attention.
Yeah.
I just only know about when people I know are harmed from their content, or like what happened with me, where again, I probably wouldn't have really thought about it, but enough people were asking me, hey, you're there. Can you ask them why they're doing this? Because so-and-so happened to me, so-and-so happened to my friend. So I was like, okay, sure, I'll ask. I kind of knew like people are going to be mad. So I'm not going to put my opinion out there. I'm just going to do like complete down the line journalism. And then everyone got mad anyways. And that kind of like justified to me. Like if you're that upset that I asked why it's there, you kind of know in the back of your mind something's wrong with it then.
I don't even know if their thought goes that deep.
It's more
you know what I mean?
subconscious.
They're not like critical thinkers like that.
Yeah, but like if you are so defensive that you're like, well, why do you even ask? In the back of your mind, you know.
Yeah, I think anything from both sides, you need to be open to a conversation about something, right? And you can't just like.
I think
block.
misogyny is a pretty closed door.
What do you mean?
Like, there's no conversation with misogyny. Like,
Sure.
if you're constantly promoting sexism and just saying things about women that are bad or harmful or hurt them or doxing them, then that's just kind of it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they also have that trash podcast, Color Daddy, which is
I went
basically
to school with one of them.
which is
Did
just
you?
which is just
Yeah.
females giving blowjob and sex advice
Yeah.
and talking about
That
sex
exists.
stories. On the other hand, which is I've listened to like part of one
And
podcast.
that's
I think
the
it's
thing, too.
trash.
It's
You're
so
a
fucking
sports
bad.
media outlet. Why do you need that? It just again goes back to like go to a lacrosse game, watch a lacrosse. If you want to be in sports, just do the sports. Why is, I mean, I understand like people who mix in like pop culture references or things like that and have fun with it, but like you're really alienating a big audience by just being like, here's sports. By the way, I want to suck a dick. Like there's
I feel like they're just catering to that crowd that wants to consume
and
it.
the thing is, like, it's not as much Barstool's fault as much as culture allowing an audience where,
Right.
like, people do desire that.
Yeah.
Barstool just gives a platform to it, which
Yeah.
isn't great, but those people are still out there.
Yeah.
And when they're encouraged and they believe they're right and that it's us against the world and everyone else is just a pussy and all that stuff,
Right.
then they're going to be defensive and they're going to be like, it's not my fault, it's your fault. By the way, I found your address, so you don't ever do that again. And that's where it becomes dangerous. And that might be like 1% of the people who read Barstool.
Yeah.
I believe a lot of people who do are innocent and just don't know better, or they're just not critically thinking about how much it's hurting someone else. Like, it's not their experience. They're not going to know what it's like to be on the other side of that. But then there is that 1% that is actually harmful, and that's dangerous enough.
Yeah. Just while we're on the Collar Daddy thing, that is so forced. It's they're just trying so hard.
It really
It's their,
upsets me.
it's
I
their
know
fame,
about it.
fame
Like,
and
I hate
fame
that.
and 15 minutes of fame kind of thing.
I
It's
can't.
just-
I like that works. Like who?
I don't want
Katie listens to it.
Yeah,
My girlfriend listens to it. I'm just. I don't know.
Again, I just don't understand why that's not a sports platform. If they're trying to claim to be a credible sports outlet, then why would you have that?
Well,
the Boston Herald's not
Are,
going to
are
have
they
that.
though? Like, are they trying to be claim that there's
No,
a credible sports?
there's
outlet?
like
I think they're
Barstool
just
Sports.
Well, they
There's
get all
other
offended.
divisions.
They're not allowed into NFL events, right? They're like
Yeah.
all mad about that. So like, well, maybe take a look at like why.
Yeah,
Well, because Portnoy's getting hammered and getting dragged out of.
But even like
certain
you want to be
games.
a legitimate, if you want to be a credentialed person, you want to be like a member of the press, you have some protocol to follow.
Yeah.
And that probably includes not having a podcast called Call Me Daddy.
Yeah.
That's in the rules somewhere.
It's got to be written.
one of the questions we like to ask our guests. So it'd be kind of cool to have a female's perspective on it. I would say predominantly we have a male audience for Stripped.
I think the numbers show that. Yeah.
Yeah, like 99%. What do you think that we could do to maybe draw the eyes of?
Just amplifying
talking to the
women's
mic.
voices.
Yeah, you're right. Draw the eyes of females audience.
Yeah, just like amplify women's voices, have women on, promote women doing things. Like if there's any journalism or work you see from women writers or anything like that, promote that. And less like not Barstool talk probably too. That probably would draw people away, I would assume. But yeah, I think the biggest thing in general that anyone can do that has a male audience or just want men who want to be allies to women in sports is just to amplify voices, not always say, well, I think this, but instead show what a woman thinks about it. Like you don't have to be like, I think this thing that was sexist is bad. Just retweet what a woman feels about it, because amplifying the voices, legitimizing them, because a lot of the time women in sports can kind of feel like their voices are being kind of erased. Like what I'm tweeting is not going to matter because some other guy is tweeting it anyways, and everyone's going to be like, oh, great job, you're being an ally. But my experience doesn't matter because they can't relate to it. So just amplifying women's voices, treating women's sports like their sports, not a sideshow, things like that. I think those are the biggest things that anyone can do is just be respectful and try to promote and amplify.
Great
Speaking
answer.
of giving just a shout out, one person that I've really loved reading her stuff and things like that, in-game host Susie Cool. Have you guys seen her on Twitter? She's the Nighthawks multimedia journalist and arena host.
Right.
She does all kinds of stuff. Her writing is really good. She's got a lot of good scoops in terms of feature writing and things like that. So I would check her out. She's great, and it's good to see.
I will give her a follow.
Yeah, give her a follow for sure at Susie Cool. It's cool with a Kewl.
Cool.
Is
That's
that
cool.
actually her last name?
No, here it's listed as Susie Cool, like Cool, but then she made it hip and went Kewl for the
Like the old
handle.
hockey brand.
I don't know what it's like to have a name people can spell. So
Me either.
Mine's
feel you on that.
easy. So
Yeah.
it's Clark, in case you didn't know.
Like Colt said, we like to ask this question, but one of the things that I always ask on the podcast is, what would you like to see from the NLL, or what do you think is required for the growth to reach more eyes, to get more people talking about it? What are the next steps that need to be made?
the thing for the NLL is like they lack some stuff, big picture and small picture. And you have to really look at the small picture things first, like having broadcasts people can watch. And I think that the fact that you have to pay for games now makes it really difficult. Like I don't pay for games, so I don't really get to see much anymore. I watch the highlights and stuff like that, but that really is going to lose part of your audience. Like some of the NWHL does, which is really cool. You can watch all the games for free.
Yeah.
And they might not make a revenue from that, but there are people who can watch and they want to go to the games now and they're talking about it. And it's just in people's minds. And since the NLL's gone with a pay format, I've lost a lot of my interest in trying to watch games. So stuff like that, just making it accessible for people, and also just like leaning into who they are. Stop trying to be the NHL all the time. Like definitely adopt parts of what makes a pro league work. But at the same time, you're a lacrosse league, promote the lacrosse. And the other thing, and this goes for like a lot of niche sports, like you see this a lot in women's hockey or even like pro soccer to an extent. And this is more like field lacrosse than indoor, but at the same time, like so much of the resources go into like kids.
Yeah.
And having adult fans is so important too. Like having adults going to the game, buying beer, like tailgating, going to the bar afterwards. Season ticket holders aren't just like children and lacrosse players. I think that targeting adult fans, and I think they've gotten a little better at that, but that's definitely something. And women's hockey is having this conversation right now too, and maybe more so, but in lacrosse, that's definitely been a thing as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. I think what Jonesy brought up when we had Mitch Jones on was like, you can't cater to the old school lacrosse fans coming from New West and stuff. If they don't like it, cool, keep trucking. Like you just got to keep pushing, and eventually it'll become a thing. I remember
That's true as well.
saying like, I was chanting defense at a Warriors game, and someone came up to me and said, people are talking on Twitter saying we don't say defense at lacrosse games. And I'm like, I don't know where you're getting that information from, because I just heard it in Halifax.
Yeah.
And anyways, and Colorado, which is a big lacrosse market.
Buffalo
and
literally has like people holding defense signs like behind the penalty box and stuff.
Anyways,
And that's like the lacrosse
my
market.
point is, if there's people complaining at a game about something like that, is okay, sure. In this year, maybe they're complaining about it, but if we keep doing it, eventually it's just going to become one.
Right.
And yeah, you can't cater to those old school lacrosse fans, or else you're never going to grow beyond that, I think.
And you do see that, the Warriors, they have the Bud Zone. You're there.
I
for
love
the
it.
Warriors. It's
It's
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah, I think it's like one of the best sections of a NLL arena that they have, and I know that other arenas are adopting that as well. I know Halifax had, what was it, a crazy happy hour deal where it was like $2.50.
A happy half hour, I think they did.
It was
Yeah.
amazing.
I saw
was
that tweet,
putting-
yeah.
Yeah, it's really smart to do that, and also to make it economically feasible. It just makes so much sense.
Well, yeah, I think it's like $5 buds at Vancouver games.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
That's
like,
great.
You don't want to
At
go to a
Bruins
game
games, it's
and-
12.
At Bruins games.
Yeah.
12? Yeah. Toronto was horrible like that. I don't know what it's like at Rock games, but they're gonna have to, drop the prices.
Also,
And-
like $5 here is like $3.75 American or something,
that's
which
true.
is great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pennies.
it's a huge
Not that we
benefit
have
that the
pennies
Canadian
anymore.
dollar is so weak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great because I keep thinking I'm spending so much money, and then I look at my bank account and I
Yeah.
spent like $4. I'm
That's
like,
gotta
no
be
way.
the greatest thing. I
It's
don't know why
great.
you're going to go back to Seattle. I would take your time.
I have
Actually,
to see it.
Yeah,
I've
no,
never
that's
seen
true.
it.
That's
and-
true.
Yeah.
That they're like once you've seen Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver.
And I've been here before. I was here during the draft.
Yeah,
And I love it here so much, and I want
Right.
to come here forever and ever, but I want to see
yeah,
Seattle.
that's fair.
That opposite feeling for us. So I just came back from Arizona. I was like $1,100 in 3 days
yeah.
of golfing. I was just like, not bad. No. It's $1,400. You're like,
It's going back. It's always like I don't want to look at my bank. Oh my god! You
It's
just-
the opposite here. It's
yeah.
so great.
You're just
So like,
let's bring it
how
on.
did I spend $48 on drinks and then it's like 32? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a lot better. Phew.
Yeah.
because I got a heart out. I have to go to work. You guys are welcome to keep talking, but do you have any questions for us? We like to ask our guests if they have any questions for us. or
You
what
played
we're
in the
doing.
NLL, right?
I did play in the NLL.
What was your
yes.
perspective of the media coverage of it?
My perspective of the media coverage of it at the time, for me, there was not much as far as I was drafted in the first round, and other
Not a big deal.
I put two and two together who you were after like a half hour of this. I'm like, oh. You're that guy. Okay.
Yeah, he's been out of the league for a hot minute. Yeah, there wasn't much coverage for like even being drafted in the first round. Like apart from getting a call from the head coach and the GM at the time, like there was no real like, hey, how does it feel to be drafted first overall to the Colorado Mammoths?
Right.
Blah blah blah. I think I had one interview the entire my 2 years there, but
Wow.
in fairness, we had a lot of studs on our team at that point. I've mentioned in past podcasts where I had Casey Powell, John Grant Jr., Gavin Prout, Drew Westervelt.
The team was fantastic.
The team was stacked, and nobody.
Dylan Ward, spelled D-Y-L-A-N.
He didn't come till the next year, but doing coverage on the kid who's sitting out every game, probably from a media perspective, isn't.
Did you read much of like Inside Lacrosse or anywhere else? IL Indoor, I guess.
I don't read.
Oh, well, that's true.
I
true.
didn't. No.
I was always curious all the years I was covering it. Are like, is anyone read? I knew the league was because they were yelling at me all the time, but I was always wondering if like players or coaches ever read anything.
I wonder what the percentage is like who pays attention to this stuff versus who doesn't.
There's guys for sure.
I feel like in
I played
lacrosse
with
there's
guys.
more than other sports. Like,
Yeah.
In hockey, I know
They'll
like
call you out.
in hockey, some guys like legit don't read any of it, and some guys definitely do. We can kind of tell.
Which I hope we get to in the NLL eventually.
No, in the NLL, like I remember players like tweeting about IL Indoor or stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I know some of them definitely were paying attention.
Right.
So it's always made me wonder like why do some guys and why don't some guys?
I think right now it's good for the players to keep
Mm-hmm.
reporters honest. And there are a lot of people who are newer covering the sport.
Yep.
So
and there's like kind of a rotating door too. There's a lot of people
True.
getting their like first job in journalism, or they're like people like me who are just like, I'm a child, let me try this.
right.
And that makes and it's the same as like I've always thought about this was like college teams. Like so many of those people who are covering you are student journalists and they're new and they don't know what to do yet. And that must be kind of it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, Ben, we like to try and cut our producer Ben in here at some point. You got any questions for us, Ben?
I just got one quick question about, so you came out of the New England area and then you went to Boston University, and like being our age, we're both 23, we just came out of like the most successful decade for a city in sports. So in that New England area, how tough was the competition for people trying to become reporters? Because if you're growing up with multiple Super Bowls, World Series, Stanley Cups, you think everyone would want to get into that. And also Boston has like the top universities in the world, so it seems like a pretty competitive market.
Yeah.
Ben with the heat.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
it's true. That's very perceptive. Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough place to get a job, and it feels like. And I've talked about this to like national writers or people not from Boston now. Like, it feels like everyone covering sports in Boston is from there, and it can kind of feel like kind of exclusive sometimes. And like it would be cool to have other people from other backgrounds. I think there were like 6 people on a Bruins beat who went to BU
Yep.
or something like that. And when I went to school, there were a lot of people I knew who wanted to go into journalism, and only like 2 of them have because it's such a tough job to get into. And then you have to think about like moving. I know someone, I went to school with who like moved to North Dakota to be a sports editor there out of Boston. Like, and that's what we have to do sometimes. I chose to stay and freelance, and I was lucky I had a lacrosse background, so I could just go to like US Lacrosse Magazine and be like, here's a thing BU did today. And they're like, cool, here's money for that.
Yeah.
And then I covered high schools and stuff too. And there are a lot of people not willing to do that stuff. I spoke at a couple college classes, and what I always tell people is like, you're not above anything. Go cover that high school volleyball thing and go do the best job anyone's ever done on it. Go cover the pro lacrosse game. Go cover women's hockey. Go cover like pro rugby or whatever. There's always something out there for you to do if you want to do it bad enough. But as far as like covering pro sports, there are people I know in Boston to this day who like have a Bruins blog, and they're like, why don't I have a full-time job yet? I'm writing about the Bruins just like you. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're not at practice every day. Yeah. You're like not required to be there. You're going there for fun. Like,
right. You haven't paid the dues.
Right. So like there are people who are just like, well, I know about the team and I have a blog and a Twitter account. So therefore, like I should have like all this stuff you have right now.
Right.
And so, yeah. And like, it's tough sometimes because that does water down like what a lot of people are doing, because some of those people will have like a Twitter following and they're getting attention. And then you have people like doing the journalism who aren't. So it's a weird market to work in that regard. Also, like sports talk radio drives the market there, and I've never seen it anywhere else before. So like you'll hear sports talk radio be like, there was a fight in the Bruins locker room today, and people will call me like, did that happen? And I'm like, no, it did not. Where are you getting that from? So it's a weird market, as in you have to like weed out so much just like unnecessary crap.
Right.
I just have to say, totally unrelated, but we mentioned Boston. Fuck Tom Brady. I'm
Okay,
sorry. I'm a
I mean-
Ravens fan.
I get it.
I had to get that.
I
in
get
there.
it.
Yeah, that was it. That's all I had to say for that one.
It's fair. Who are you a fan of?
Ravens. I'm a Ravens fan.
I hate the Ravens.
That's okay.
My best friend lives in Annapolis. I'm in Maryland all the time. And just like, God, the Ravens. No.
Yeah, it hurt this season. This season was painful.
I was on the Titans bandwagon in that game.
Okay, all right. Maybe we shouldn't talk anymore.
Well, thank you, Marisa Ingemi.
Ingemi.
Oh, come on.
Oh, no.
Colton.
You had it right in the intro.
Oh, we were doing so good.
Recut. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it. 8 a.m. I mean, thanks for everybody for showing up, really.
Yeah.
It's really because of me, because I have to go to work at 10 here.
We all do it for you.
Thanks, man.
You owe us.
Where can they find you on your social media?
On Twitter at Marisa_Ingemi. 1 R,
Not
1 S.
Ingemi.
Not Ingemi. It doesn't matter if you're typing it, I guess.
I told you my brain isn't working this morning. Like I'm
It's
deathly
fine.
hungover. Like I got it right once. Fuck off.
I get it. And
I
you're hungover
I
and having
apologize.
Bailey is like
I
mad
apologize.
respect.
Yeah.
So much respect for that move.
Hair of the dog.
Exactly.
Hair of the dog.
So, yeah, sorry we cut you off. Where can people find you?
Twitter at Marisa_Ingemi, at the Boston Herald. My name's there somewhere. That's about it.
Yeah, well,
Instagram if you want. It's the same handle.
we appreciate you taking the time, and you do a great job with
Thank you.
the Boston Bruins, and hopefully lacrosse will have you back very soon, or you're able to kind
Once,
of find the time to do it, and the league is growing.
Someday.
So yeah, we need insiders like yourself covering the league.
We also need sponsors. So sponsors.
Tim Hortons.
Yeah, Tim Horton, shout out. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Unless anybody's got anything else. No, we're good.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Strip Podcast. Catch a new episode every Wednesday. We're giving away prizes every week. Follow along with our social channels at Lacrosse Flash.
Once again.